right, so let's get into our conversation tonight concerning security in Nigeria. Don't forget the president is in Turkey, and part of the discussions ongoing concerns security. So what are the areas we need to work on? What are the areas we should be focusing on when we're trying to get all the help, bilateral collaborations, and the rest? And to discuss this with us on the program tonight, we're joined by Dr. Kabir Adamu, who's a security consultant and the CEO, Beacon Consulting. He joins us via Zoom on the program. Dr. Adamu, thank you for joining us on the program indeed. Well, let me begin with what we heard the Deputy Speaker of the House say on the floor of the House of Representatives recently. And that was, it pointed to some sort of connivance, compromise on the path of security agencies. I know we always talk about the other areas, but I'd like us to begin from this one. Just how big an issue is this? I know we always talk about the other areas, but also begin from this one. Just how big an issue is this?
Okay, Kayode, I couldn't hear the beginning of your question, but I had the last part, which is the allegation by the Deputy Speaker regarding the, as it were, connivance between police and criminal elements. Now, interestingly, the Kaduna State Police Command released a rejoinder, as it were, and denied all the allegations leveled against it by the Deputy Speaker. So, frankly, the issue is out there. It kind of depends on who you want to go with. But then, as someone who is in the industry and who has been practicing for quite a while, unfortunately, this is not new. I want to take you back to the kidnap incident that happened in the University of Abuja. That incident too, unfortunately, we had from the security sources within the University of Abuja that it appeared before that particular incident, they had handed over certain suspects to the police, and that those suspects were eventually released by the police. So those types of allegations, unfortunately, are there. And coming from such a very high quarters as the Deputy Speaker, I believe that the police should look into it, identify if at all it's true, identify who is responsible, and then take necessary action. If it's a systematic issue that has to do with individuals within the system, then that must be corrected as well. If it's a case of one or two persons who are flouting the law, then I think it must be corrected to immediately. But suffice to say, unfortunately, that type of allegation is quite common within the police.
Dr. Adamu, how hard is it to resolve this? Because you would expect that security agencies, they're meant to be the standard, as it were, because they essentially are meant to uphold the law. They are law enforcers. So they should be the standard. So how hard, because the Deputy Speaker was saying heads have to roll. And for the Deputy Speaker to say heads have to roll, you wonder who is meant to take on that task of making the heads roll. So if heads would roll, who should take on that task? The heads roll.
It should be the responsibility of, as it were, the police itself should be, concerned about such a weighty allegation coming from the number 5 person in terms of protocol, or number 6 in the country. And on the floor of the House, the police should be very concerned. Then we have the Minister of Police Affairs. We also have the Police Service Commission that has responsibility for certain administrative issues within the police. Then beyond that, I believe that the National Assembly too, as an institution, should have some elements of responsibility. There are committees that have oversight from capacity and capability over the police. So they too should be able to look at such issues. But beyond that, I think as a country, the role of the police is too important to be allowed to be ridiculed in this manner. And so once these types of things come up, we should not allow it just go like that. All of these institutions that I mentioned should take responsibility And then, of course, the Inspector General of Police, who is the highest ranking police officer, should be accountable at the end of the day. The Deputy Speaker is there. He made those allegations. He mentioned names. So I think we have enough to start an investigation going. The worry is that this is a perception among a majority of Nigerians. If you recall, when there was this measure of corruption among public institutions, I think the last one, the police came out either as number 3. Before then, the police came out as number 2. So unfortunately, this issue has been there. It's a long-running issue. And I think we have an opportunity now to address it, given the fact that this has come up on the floor of the House and it's received enormous publicity by both the mainstream media as well as social media. So we're hoping that the various departments that I mentioned would take up that challenge, investigate the matter, and if there are facts behind the allegation, then of course they should do the right thing. If not, then the Deputy Speaker that made that allegation should be held responsible too for, as it were, making false allegations.
It's interesting, Dr. Adamu. You've said more than 2 things. You've talked about an investigation which should be conducted. You also referenced the statement by the Kaduna police regarding this one. So as it stands, this is still some sort of allegation that needs to be investigated. But you also said if it's not true, then the Deputy Speaker should, of course, take responsibility and perhaps withdraw that. But in terms of the investigation side now, this is your field, so you've seen these things time and again. How difficult is this task? You're talking about, I don't know, is it the police investigating itself, looking inwards? We've heard this time and again. In fact, we're recovering sort of from one, but this one we had to get a judicial panel of inquiry to look into that one. So for this one you refer to, how difficult a task is it?
Unfortunately, a little bit difficult because of our history. In terms of the facts that are available, not difficult, really. All it takes is the political will, for instance, to launch an investigation. And I made reference to the fact that it affects the integrity of a very key institution within our national security architecture, and that is the police. And so that means all the players within that sector should be very, very mindful of the significance of not investigating such a weighty allegation. But then because over time in our history, we have allowed, this culture of lack of accountability, unfortunately, to creep in. I wouldn't be surprised if this also goes by without any, investigation into it. Like I said, the Kaduna State Police Command has released a report, and most times that is where it ends. In the report, they indicated that there is no fact behind the allegation by the Deputy Speaker, and that they are not, privy to any information suggesting that he has handed over anyone to them. Meanwhile, he has indicated in his statement that even the governor of the state was aware of the fact. So again, there are enough facts to commence an investigation. All it takes is, the political will among these various institutions that I mentioned, the Minister of Police Affairs, the Police Service Commission, the Office of the Inspector General of Police, and then the presidency too can come in. Once there's that political will, it's very easy given the facts that are available on ground. But like I said, unfortunately, that culture is already within us. And except if, we reverse that, I do not expect that anything would come out of this, unfortunately.
Yeah, we certainly hope this will be different. But so that's in Kaduna State and in neighboring Katsina, because this conversation essentially focuses on, that region, the sub-region of the northwestern sub-region of the country. And just recently, the governor of this state visited the president, where he, spoke about that sad killing of a commissioner in the state. And he also, afterwards spoke about something that is quite controversial, and I'd like to get your views on this one. And it talked about, getting people to bear arms, as it were. And according to him, he says if the criminals, have that the audacity to bear arms freely, in quotes, why not give the people, some lawful means to be able to acquire arms? I know we can reference what's happening in the United States and in other climes, but Nigeria's case is peculiar, and you probably have had to speak to this one. But regarding the governor of Katsina State, the peculiar situation he's in and the sub-region is in, would you say that's the way to go?
So I would like to reference Mexico here. For a lot of reasons, the situation in Mexico is almost similar to what we're having in Nigeria, where gaps within the security architecture of the state has allowed non-state actors, in the case of Mexico, drug warlords, to control certain segments of the state. And they are perpetrating, to an extent, the kind of banditry that we're seeing in Nigeria. And so what has evolved almost naturally is self-help militias that are protecting, units of the communities. And so I am of the opinion, and based on my studies, that if we do not address quickly the situation we have in Nigeria, then we're going to have the Mexico-like situation where self-help groups will emerge, and these self-help groups will arm themselves to protect communities. We're already seeing that in the Southwest. Amotekun has come up, but of course with the backing of state laws. The South is already discussing its own security arrangement. Of course, in the North, you've got this state-level arrangements that are not very coordinated. So as we progress in terms of all of these security challenges, I think whether the governor calls for it or not, it will be a natural development. As human beings, nobody's going to allow himself to be killed. At some point, you would seek to protect yourself. The call by the governor is instrumental in the sense that instead of allowing this natural sort of development, which in the long run may not augur well for our society, perhaps it's best that government takes charge and responsibility and perhaps begin discussion around the decentralization of our security architecture. Despite all the challenges that may come with the decentralization, I think if we do it ourselves and put in place measures to check whatever disadvantages that may come out of it, it would be best for us than if we allow this natural sort of development that I mentioned to happen.
A few things here, Dr. Adamu. The self-help, which you referenced, was essentially people, going out of the law to procure these things, to get these arms outside of the law. So that's essentially self-help. But you also reference decentralizing it. So that's essentially tweaking our laws to allow, I imagine, states, sub-regions, sub-nationals, as it were, to have some sort of, decision-making ability when it comes to arm bearing. And there's another level, which is having the law back individuals to own arms. Now, this is not, like the arrangement of the Amotekun and the rest. This is for individuals. So which one are you referencing as the way forward? Is it for individuals to be able to acquire these arms? Of course, that will need the laws to change. Or for sub-nationals to have, to be empowered to be able to make decisions regarding that?
Okay, I am of the view that the sub-nationals should have some level of, involvement within the security architecture. I do not think our development has reached that stage where individuals should own weapons beyond what they can own right now. Let's not forget that, individuals based on the Weapons Act can own pump-action rifles. But anything beyond that, I do not think we've reached that stage yet. For a lot of reasons, the type of disharmony that exists within us, the types of ethnic profiling, hate messaging and all that exists within us, unfortunately, if we allow that, I think it would create more challenges. But at the subnational level, where you expect some level of checks and balances, then I think it would be hopefully able to block some of the vulnerabilities that exist within our national security architecture at the moment.
To be fair with you, and I know that you probably see this as well. I mean, these laws, these talks might not happen in the next 5 years or 10 years. It might take a long time or might not even happen. So shouldn't we also be focusing on probing properly how these, non-state actors get access to arms? These things are not sold in the open market freely, and they are expensive, by the way. So how do they get access? Shouldn't we be also talking about that?
Yeah, so I recently did a study on that in particular, and it was quite mind-boggling, the revelation from that. In other words, what we found out that the majority of the weapons were coming from across the border, mainly from Libya, from Mali, and then interestingly, which shocked us, from our own security agencies, the armory of our security agencies, the integrity of those armories are not, they're not very good. And so it's very easy for non-state actors to raid our security formations, invade the armories, steal from the armories. And then the second part of that is the corrupt individuals within the security architecture that sell these weapons, or sometimes for hire, to the security agencies. And then lastly, there is a local manufacturing industry for some of these weapons, including the AK-47 and AK-49. So it's a combination of all of these factors that unfortunately allow these non-state actors to have access to weapons. But the more interesting fact is even the numbers. We came up with a number of roughly about 6.5 million small arms and light weapons in circulation in the country. And when we tried to identify the number of law enforcement agents that were legally, constitutionally allowed to bear weapons, the figure came to about 700,000, thereabout. And then we now tried to get the number of licenses that has been issued by the Inspector General of Police. Now, all of that came to about 1.7 million. So if you remove that from the 6.5 million, it means roughly there are about 4.7 to 4.8 million small arms and light weapons in the hands of non-state actors, including state-level security arrangement. Compare that with the 1.7 that are in the hands of licensed officials. That is the enormity of our challenge in the country that we are not dealing with at the moment. I must mention that the president has appointed someone, as it were, to mop up these small arms and light weapons. He's also submitted a bill to the National Assembly, but that bill has yet to be passed by the National Assembly for the creation of a commission for the mopping up of these small arms and light weapons. So it's a huge challenge that, unfortunately, we are yet to contend with in the country. And it's one of the major drivers of the security challenge that we have in the country at the moment.
Oh, well, Dr. Kabir Adamu, it's been quite enlightening speaking with you on this one, as always. I would like to thank you very much for joining us on the program and sharing your thoughts and data, because that's always very vital to this discussion. Thank you so much. Dr. Kabir Adamu is a security consultant and CEO, Beacon Consulting. Thank you again.